Hello, everyone. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live. My name is Revan Oluklu. I'm the APAC lead at Alex Solutions, and I'm joined today by Sindhu Prasanna. Thank you so much for joining me, Sindhu. Sindhu is our principal product manager, so there's no one better to really talk to you about how the Alex platform can provide business intelligence, rationalization, and cost, optimization. But as far as myself and what I can bring to our conversation today, hopefully I can just provide a bit of context from my field work with prospects and customers who are struggling with those really fragmented BI stacks that we all know today, right? Where there are inconsistent metric definitions and escalating infrastructure costs, whether you're migrating to new cloud platforms or kind of rationalizing into a single one. You're always going to have those legacy systems still in the data flow that are feeding these critical reports and dashboards as well. And a lot of the time, it's very hard to trust metrics if you're expending a lot of manual effort just to find them and understand kind of what tables and what kind of sheets are actually feeding these reports in the first instance, right? So a lot of the time when I'm working with prospects and customers, you're seeing these kind of BI teams having to spend 80% of their time actually preparing the data for reports and dashboards, and really only 20%, if they're lucky, on analysis and finding the value, which we all know is there in the data, but it's often very, very obscured by the movements, the transformations, the contingencies between the different systems that this data actually moves through before it appears in the reports, and where the BI tools are actually drawing the information from, right? So I know that, for instance, the average knowledge work actually loses almost 4 hours a day, like 3.5 hours per day, just searching for the data. And I think what Sindhu is going to take us through today is a really practical look at the Alex platform and how it provides a unified intelligence layer that can really shift your organization from instinct-based and kind of really manual cobbling together of the right data and the right reports on a very ad hoc basis to an evidence-based decision-making system where what is in the BI dashboards and reports is trustworthy and high quality, but also that that the BI reports and dashboards and the metrics in them are the right ones and the ones that go to the core of why you adopted the BI platforms in the first place, right? Generating business value and insights from data that really, really matter. So I'll just pass it over to Sindhu and she can take us into the first example.
Yes, thanks, Revan, and thanks for the introduction. Yes, I work as a principal product manager, and I've been here for a while. I drive the product strategy and customer value, and cross-system evaluation execution at scale. So today we'll be looking at this key problem that most of the organization faces. But first, let me acknowledge that this is not a simple problem to tackle. At an enterprise level, the BI is very large and too precious to meddle with. At the same time, it's very important for us to understand that it should serve its purpose in the first place. Otherwise, all your investments and costs are not taking you in the right direction. So the challenge the organization faces is where to start and how to achieve BI optimization without boiling the entire ocean. So Alex offers more than a set of features to tackle this problem. I believe that data governance is not a single thing. It's just the right combination of the selected methods applied in the right manner for a particular business objective.
How would you approach it, Sindhu? I suppose like what I've seen is, a lot of manual struggles at some of the prospects and the customers that I deal with. So how would you actually approach optimizing a BI layer in a way that, is manageable? As you say, it's not boiling the whole ocean.
Yes, so it's important to understand that this is not a simple problem to tackle. So at the end of the session, I would summarize with the 90-day playbook. But without rushing this through, let's take a step back and understand how usage telemetry captured across different technology can be one of the greatest starting points. So the main challenge in the usage tracking is establishing the enterprise context when each user might be identified with different problem. And this is the real problem that the customers face, right? Let me demonstrate how one can view the usage pattern of users interacting with multiple platforms in a single and an integrated view. You can see how Alex captures and standardizes usage telemetry across MicroStrategy, Snowflake, Power BI, and Databricks. Upon investigating the usage pattern of a single enterprise user, that is Sarah, it is found that this user holds multiple technical accounts across different platforms, such as a specific Active Directory user, a service account for Snowflake, and a MicroStrategy login. So Alex brings all of these identities together in this unified enterprise view. Next, we need to understand how Sarah's activity actually touches. Expanding her user profile, you can see the exact processes and reports and entities that she's been accessing all this while. Alex provides an end-to-end lineage view that connects the user to the report and metrics and all the underlying tables. If Sarah is accessing a Power BI report or a MicroStrategy report, we can trace its lineage all the way back to its original source tables in Snowflake. And this unified knowledge graph provides a full-blown cross-platform usage telemetry.
That's a really important foundation, I think, Sindhu. So thanks for taking us through that. Where I see BI optimization fail in organizations most commonly is really at the report level and starting at the report level, right? So if you fail to do that, if you're just looking at manually kind of fixing certain columns and tables and things of that nature in the source systems, right? Like you're never going to know what you actually need at the business critical level, at the compliance and regulatory level. You're not triaging, essentially. You're not deciding what to keep, what can be consolidated into a single report if it's a duplicate, or what can even be retired, and therefore, your overall kind of architecture is streamlined, and what you're managing actually becomes more restricted and therefore more manageable, right? So yeah, understanding that is really important. And I think what you've just shown us is that Alex can provide that unified view that shifts from the overall kind of fragmented and manual patchwork of systems to an enterprise view and an end-to-end understanding, especially through the lineage of how some of this data is moving and being transformed before it actually ends up in reports, right? So once, identity, usage, and lineage are connected, you can see how it quickly goes from guesswork and manual exercise to evidence-based. And I definitely know from some of the customers that we work with in APAC how valuable that really is. So I think the next question to ask you, Sindhu, would be, once we know who is using what, how do we identify that duplication and that inconsistency, and what can we do to actually bring down the unnecessary costs and risks? Because, like, for example, like I'm aware that a lot of independent studies actually show that the return on investment often exceeds 300% if you are implementing a BI layer in a way that provides that ultimate clarity and that ultimate value.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, and I'm sure I'll assure you that scale of return on investment is achievable. But let's understand Sarah's daily struggle with these multiple reports holding similar metrics, and that's where the room for optimization then becomes, right? And this is a very important and a common problem faced by most of the BI managers, because their teams are calculating the same metrics differently across in the different systems and presenting them to the board or users like Sarah in different reports. And this is where Alex offers the AI-powered duplicate detection. And for example, we might find sales performance report in Power BI and sales overview report in MicroStrategy that share the exact same metric, and might be one of the two that Sarah is using, as you can see. The Alex AI-powered duplicate detection enriches the assets with indicators such as duplication types, potential duplicates, and causes of duplication, and so on. And let's explore how tracing the lineage of the report that Sarah is using, we can see if these metrics have the same logic or pull from different Snowflake table, or they simply have the same name, but they are using conflicting logic.
A lot of BI teams that I see, Sindhu, they do know that they have the duplicated reporting, but they typically don't know actually which duplicates are safe to remove and which metrics are the kind of critical ones, and that might be disrupted by actually removing some, right? So reports can look very similar on the surface, but the logic underneath, as you kind of have gone through a little bit, is very different often. And this gives teams a much better way to separate genuine redundancy from reports that still have a valid purpose. So once we know where the duplication is, Sindhu, how do we actually decide what to prioritize?
Yes, with such in-depth knowledge available at scale, establishing the optimization strategy and prioritizing the right items to decommission becomes obviously the next step. To help rationalize the BI environment, the Alex overlays usage data into the inventory itself. We might see that the Power BI report has high view counts, while its counterpart and the duplicate version in the MicroStrategy has a very few views. And you can see that with this example. Before notifying the report owners via Alex workflow that it is safe to decommission the unpopular MicroStrategy report, a quick impact analysis can be performed to ensure that there is no downstream dependencies or even other users. And when there are other users, they can always be notified that this is the appropriate report you should use instead. And this immediately provides prioritization and migration strategy, and that's where your efforts can be focused on. But one might need to have these kind of insights at scale. And this is where Alex's enterprise reporting analytics dashboard plays its role, because it captures a complete audit history of all the changes that comes into the Alex inventory. Let's look at this usage indicators through the usage analytics dashboard, where the usage trends are captured across all the technology, all the data domains, and all the asset types across your entire user base. These insights can aid in decision making. For example, if you look at the same user's usage telemetry on MicroStrategy, the items that Sarah was using the most is easily identifiable. It's not so difficult to nail this one down. Of course, when you're doing it manually, it will take time for you to search and do it. But with this insights available at scale, it becomes very powerful to identify the usage trend and over time as well. And this is what empowers the executives to continuously monitor the progress and success of the migration strategy and rationalization initiatives. And not only that, the executives can also segment the usage by technology or business domain, because they might just want to focus on a few business domain and identify the active users in that space alone as their prioritized place to optimize. So unused and unpopular and stale reports and data sets and metrics can all be identified at scale. And the current users and also the owners can be involved in that participative mechanism, which will lead it to its either decommission or being consolidated.
Right, that's really practical, Sindhu. So in other words, Alex isn't just providing you with a list of unused reports, it's providing you with the specific usage of those reports, the ownership of them, the duplication and uses together, so that your BI teams can review which assets are good candidates for removal or for consolidation. Obviously, you know, when I see this, you know, in the field, it's a lot of the time reports kind of look stale, but they might still support a business process and executive dashboard and the like, maybe another downstream report even. So before anything is actually retired, even if you have kind of got it in scope for consolidation or for removal, you need to understand the impact, and a lot of the companies that I work with still struggle with that. So where would you say that comes from, Sindhu?
Yes, so it's very important to understand where the highest value of return comes from, because instead of performing complex searches and trying to come to this stage manually by identifying the duplicate reports and metrics across different systems and assessing its impact, the users can simply use Alex AI Assistant, and all of this could be embedded in their workflows. So for example, the user can instantly identify the optimization targets by simply asking the chatbot, like find all the snowflake tables with no impact. And these become your data swamps and the focus area for you to start decommissioning, because these might be your data sets that are not used or simply proliferated over a period of time for the sake of urgency of creating a particular KPI for the business, right? And or instead we could ask, find all the MicroStrategy reports that are duplicated by a Power BI report, and these become your potential candidates for prioritization, for consolidation. Or the user could simply ask, find 10 Power BI metrics that have duplicates in MicroStrategy, and such metrics then become a candidate for cross-system consolidation. So you see how this not only can be targeting at the source, but also at the target, which is your BI layer, and between different BI applications in your BI layer. So imagine if you could simply ask Alex chatbot in your Microsoft Teams or Google Chat, or through a conversation interface embedded in the Alex platform itself. And this is as simple as it can get, because it is very quick, it's easy, and it drives discussion and decision. So you can focus on the action to be performed rather than trying to understand your landscape, because understanding the landscape is not the goal. It is getting to the stage where you can start taking action for real optimization and consolidation.
Yeah, that's beautifully put, Sindhu. I think what I often see is that the financial impact on organizations that are really struggling with this sprawl and almost like a black box of their BI and reporting is that it comes from the scale of the problem. Like, you're not just dealing with 10 or 20 reports. You actually have thousands of dashboards, reports, data sets, metrics, tables, pipelines spread across Power BI, sometimes even other reporting platforms that are parallel to Power BI in other departments of the business. And you see, data fed into those reporting platforms from Snowflake, Databricks, MicroStrategy, even older systems, right, as well. Legacy systems are still often really, really critical. So the cost isn't just measured in the software licenses that I see, it's also the time that analysts are actually expending just trying to find the right report, and the time that your data engineers and your reporting engineers are spending just answering repeat questions, and the cloud cost of keeping these stale and duplicated assets running in the hosting, right? So there's often three main areas that I can say value comes through and in our solution. And it's that the first is like the teams get their time back. Analysts can find what already exists rather than recreate it. And just like you say, Sindhu, like engineers aren't constantly pulled into basic discovery or ownership questions. So they're able to expend that time on action and actually optimizing the overall flow, making sure the data quality is really, really high and everything is being complied with. If there is kind of regulations that need to be complied with and so on, as far as access and usage go, right? So the second is organizations often reduce a lot of waste. So you can actually see these reports and tables and pipelines that are unused or stale, and you can retire them safely, knowing that you're not going to have catastrophic impacts on other critical reports and so on. And the third is that reporting becomes much more trusted. And this one is honestly my favorite, because when you have that trust, if 5 teams are using 5 different versions of the same metric, you're never going to be able to trust it when it appears in a dashboard or report, because you're not going to know which team, which department of the business it's coming from, and therefore what it actually represents. Customer can mean so many different things, even in the exact same organization, right? So BI optimization and being able to clarify these metrics, these reports, and the underlying data itself helps identify, where those conflicts are and actually clean them up and unify them. So that unification that Alex provides is really invaluable for the overall ability to trust and use your BI stack, right? So the point isn't just going in and deleting the reports. It is having the right reports to take business actions, on the basis of, and that's really what I love about this part of our solution.
Yes, I mean, I'd just like to emphasize and reiterate what you told our audiences today, because the strongest ROI comes from practical improvements, because it's one to reduce the duplicate reports and metrics. But most of the BI teams already know this. I mean, this is not a rocket science. We have to go through the hard work of understanding where the potential room exists for optimization, because they all know that they've been building similar dashboards, or they've been trying to tackle the same KPI, but they're all segmented in different teams, or they do not work in a collaborated fashion, and they just want to get going with what is in their hand on that day, right? And it might be very unclear to them in terms of who's proliferating which of the layers, not just necessarily in the BI layer, but this could also create data swamps at the source, and which is often the cause for data quality issues at some time later, or potential cause of confusion in terms of which one is the right copy, right? Another is to retire the stale assets, because some reports and data sets stay in the environment for years, and no one wants to tackle this today, right? And no one thinks it's my problem, because it has been there for a while, and this is what builds up the tech debt and the data swamps, to be honest. And it still, but it still consumes costs and maintenance effort, and more than anything, the governance attention has to be paid, because in the end, those systems may contain sensitive information, right? And then the third is improving the productivity of people, because why would a person like Sarah, who's so important to the organization, spend her time searching for the insights? Instead, it should be a self-service, and the questions like who owns it, and who's the owner of the definition, or which is the right copy, shouldn't be the bottleneck, and shouldn't be, Sarah shouldn't be spending time in chasing such answers. And which is what leads to my last point, which is all the teams work optimally, because if we reduce this clutter and optimize the layers, it also reduces the load on the IT team, and instead of answering these questions someone like Sarah may have, the IT teams can focus on building other things and more data products, and which is where the business analyst can turn into themselves as a self-served, in a self-served mechanism. And this is what the modern organization needs to focus, because if they are modernizing their BI stack, these benefits are non-negotiable. And if we are moving from legacy platforms into systems like Power BI, Snowflake, and Databricks, you do not want to migrate blindly. You want to make an educated call. Again, you want to know where to keep and what to consolidate without leaving what is important for you behind. Right?
I was just going to say, like, that's the important point. It's making the cleanup safe and structured, taking decisions where you actually know what the consequences of them are going to be. And that's how organizations can really, make sure that they can rid themselves of the BI waste without breaking what makes the BI, so key to adopt and to leverage in the first instance. So I suppose the more difficult question, Sindhu, would be, where do you actually start, and how do you avoid breaking something that the business still depends on?
Yeah, so this is what leads us to the 90-day implementation playbook. So let's conclude with that, because that's what gives you a clear plan and a clear timeline and the targets and milestones that you could tackle, because you don't have to, as I said, boil the ocean and try to assess every corner of your data landscape. So although Alex provides a wide range of product suite and feature sets, and not limited to what I have demonstrated today, but deployment of products and achieving the business objective can get notoriously complex. And this is precisely where Alex can help you to focus what matters. And to succeed to that, I would recommend the organization to take on the 90-day time to value playbook, with the 90 days split into 4 phases. With the first phase is all about defining the North Star by picking about 3 to 5 high value business domains like revenue or supply chain. And this will enable you to pick the right technology stacks that you want to start focusing on in terms of identifying where to optimize. And that might be your first approach. And then coming to the next phase, after the technology stack has been identified, creating the unified knowledge graph then becomes important by harvesting and modeling all the data sources and the BI tool. And this shouldn't be modeling by hand, because our connectors are intelligent enough to stitch and create the unified knowledge graph in a standardized fashion, because we harvest information which is raw, but we also intelligently ingest it into our knowledge graph, and all of this is automatically done. The modeling is done on your behalf by the connectors already. And this phase is what is the most heavy in terms of investment, because it takes a lot of time and effort if it were to be done manually. And I don't think anyone in this age approaches this without an automating and an orchestrating tool, right? And additionally, we could also top this up with a data quality profiling mechanism as well, because data quality is a very key factor in building up the BI consolidation strategy, because you do not want to decommission a report which is high quality, even if it is less used. On the flip side, again, you do not want to use a report which has low quality. So quality becomes a key factor. Moving on to the third phase, which is all about establishing stewardship and data quality for all the top assets identified in the landscape of the picked business domains. And this is very important because establishing stewardship and kicking off the AI-powered duplicate detection, you do not want to do this for a massive set of assets. You want to have a very targeted approach, and establishing data quality and kicking off the monitoring system, you want to do it on a regular basis as well, because freshness of and the data quality changes over a period of time. So you want to monitor for it for a while before you think it is a good candidate for decommissioning. And then comes the last phase, which is all about activating and embedding the AI assistant by rolling it into your platforms, whether it is your Google chatbot or MS Team chatbot, or even having this integrated conversational interface within Alex platform, so that each domain can then be empowered and come up with their own BI optimization plan. Moving on to the last phase, which is all about activating and embedding the AI assistant into the platforms that you use, like Google Chatbot or MS Team Copilot. Or it could also be the integrated AI chat assistants that we have in the platform, which is the Alex platform. So what this leads to is the business domains are empowered to come up with their own business optimization plan and coordinate with the people who are involved, and have the ownership of the reports to be decommissioned or consolidated. And the executives can view and suggest and monitor the progress of all this entire initiatives using the Alex ERA dashboard, which is a usage analytics dashboard, and also understand how there has been shifting trends of people moving from the stale reports to the reports that are more popular and quality assured as well.
Thank you so much for stepping out that 90-day plan, Sindhu. It's personally one that I've seen us implement with some of our customers before. And I think the benefit of having that phased plan is that you can see in each phase where the value actually is. It's not just the overall endpoint, which is of course the North Star and where you want to get to, but it's being able to actually step it out and see, okay, in phase 2, in about, by the end of 6 weeks, we're going to be able to see all of this information in one place. Where is it coming from? What's the telemetry behind it? Whether or not there's, data quality issues that we need to look into, and which reports are actually affected by those data quality issues and so on, right? Or the ultimate endpoint, which is kind of 11 to 12 weeks, and understanding, that now you're at a point where it's so streamlined in the BI environment, and it's kind of seen at the high level through Alex, and it's been governed, and it's actually, kind of under control, right? So you can get to the point where you're actually just conversing with the chatbot, and you don't need to prompt, your data engineers or your reporting engineers to go and assure you that this is the right information. It's all being used in a way that you can actually trust. You can actually just have a conversation with the chatbot, which is pretty cool. And I love seeing that that growth in the tool as well, in terms of our personal adoption at Alex of AI. It's so exciting to see where it's going. But just wanted to really thank you once again, Sindhu, for stepping that out for us. I think your presentation was really clear, and it certainly is something that I'm going to be referring to when I have these conversations with prospects, right? Because it's one thing to kind of meet them where they are. It's another thing to show them that we've thought about this, and this is something that we really know how to handle. So I'm sure there's plenty of questions in the LinkedIn Live that we can get to as well. So please just drop them through, and we'll be able to respond to them. I wonder if you guys are struggling with some of your reporting, right? Like, we all know that there's duplicate reports and dashboards out there, but how do we actually determine which ones are duplicates? You're going to need automation, like Sindhu said, and it's great to be working at Alex and being able to work with a platform that can facilitate those types of solutions that are really, really valuable at the business level. It's something that really excites me. So thank you again for joining today, and I hope you guys actually got a lot of insight from this. Thank you.